So, welcome to this third lecture on stochastic and neural models for speech recognition. So, this is one of the most important lecture, and whatever we will be discussing for the next 7 to 8 classes will revolve around the concepts discussed in this class. So, we will do a quick revision of what we have went through. First, we started with some parameter estimation technique named maximum likelihood. So, this method computes the likelihood function, and we take logarithm of that and take partial derivative with respect to the parameters and set it to 0, and then compute the optimal parameters. And this technique depends only on the data. So it doesn't involve any other assumptions. Okay. And this is nothing but simple averaging. It does some averaging on the samples. It may be just a sample average for mean, or the outer product of the sample for computing the variance and so on. So this is a pretty simple estimation technique. Next, we discussed maximum a posteriori map technique. So this maximize the posterior density function, and it depends upon both the data samples as well as whatever the prior information you have about the parameter. So here the estimates, the estimator, the map estimator which is obtained after this procedure is a convex combination of the ML estimator and some prior information which you specified by this P of theta. Okay. So this the convex combination means, okay, so you have two quantities, that is, one is an ML estimator and the other is the prior information. So you weigh such that the weighing values are between 0 and 1, they sum to 1. So that is what convex combination means, and based on the amount of data that you have and the belief, how strong your belief is, one of the term takes precedence over the other. If the data is more, then the ML estimator term takes precedence, and if your prior belief is strong, and if you have less number of data samples, then your prior quantity gets more weightage. So that is what we saw for map, and we saw some 2-3 examples in each of the cases. And then we looked at a problem of GMM, where the Gaussian mixture model, where the objective function is a bit complicated, which means which is like the function is highly non-convex, and it is a bit difficult to take derivative of that function with respect to its parameters. So that is why we go for latent variable based modeling. Okay. So in this class we will see about this latent variable based modeling, and how we can solve for the parameters using a procedure called expectation maximization procedure. Okay. So the agenda today is that EM algorithm, and we'll talk about Q functions, how do we compute Q functions, and some Jensen's inequality. It is used to prove or understand some of the terms in the derivation which we will be doing, and how this Q function optimization is indirectly related to the likelihood optimization. We will see about that as well, and we will also see some graphical illustration of this procedure. Okay. Then this is the first point is a general EM formulation. Then next EM for GMM model. So we will talk for this particular problem, GMM problem, how do we apply EM. Okay. So we will touch upon that, and in the next class we will complete the derivation of this GMM model. In this class we will focus mainly on the expectation maximization algorithm in general form. Okay. So here for EM the assumption is the samples, we are given some samples It may be IID, it may not be IID. But in this class, and for GMM anyhow it's IID, maybe in HMM case or other complicated models, it may be, it may not be IID. Okay. So in this class we are, but in general formulation we'll assume that the samples are generated by some model. Okay, we don't know whether that model is, whether the samples are IIDs or not, but some samples are given, and the model inherently depends upon some hidden random variables. Okay, so for example, if a model is generating a data, it depends upon some hidden random variable z, and it generates your data, whatever the data you have. Earlier we had some model which just generates this data. Okay, so why this is required? Okay, in the previous 2 or 3 classes what we have been discussing is this kind of scenario. So in this class we'll focus on this, where if you have some complicated functions to optimize, then it's better to go for this because it is easier to solve using the EM procedure. So that's why we have some hidden, some element of hiddenness in generating the data by the model. Okay. So to estimate the parameters, EM follows 2-step procedure. It's an iterative procedure. First you take expectation, E step, okay, and the other step is M step. So in the first iteration we do expectation step, then we maximize, then whatever the parameter we got, we take expectation and we maximize the function, and we take expectation and we maximize the function, and so on. So we, so this is the entire procedure. We can stop at some 40 iteration, 50 iteration or something. Okay, or based on how much is the increase in the data likelihood function, objective function's value. If it's not increasing so much, you can stop. So there are a lot of stopping criteria where to stop. I told you, okay, we take expectation. So expectation of what? Expectation with respect to what density function? We'll see all these things as we go along. Okay, so and this procedure guarantees convergence, which means it reaches a local optima. Okay. And even though the objective function is non-convex, and you can't expect it to go to a global optima for such kind of, for all these problems where we will be applying EM. Global optima can only be obtained by combinatoric search. If the variables, if these z, the hidden variables, are discrete, then we go for combinatoric search. If it's continuous, then it's a bit it can't be done at all, because based on the function smoothness you have to do grid search and do a lot of things to get the optimal parameter value. So and also if your data is huge, then it's impossible to do any combinatoric search. Okay. So that's why, okay, we have to settle for local optima. Okay, and sometimes, okay, if the function is very non-convex, okay, it might get into a poor local optima. So for that we can apply some standard techniques like annealing and averaging of models and reinitialization and so on. Okay, so all these techniques can be applied to this EM procedure to get a better solution, kind of thing. But we'll not be dealing with any of these things. We'll just focus on the general EM procedure. Okay. So the procedure is, it's as I told you, it's a 2-step. Okay, in the first step, which is the expectation step, we have the data and the parameters. We assume some parameter initially. Then from the data and parameter, we compute the hidden variables, that is z. And in the maximization step, we have the data and the hidden variables. From there, you get the parameters. And this procedure has to be repeated iteratively. Okay. So we'll see the EM procedure with maximum likelihood objective function. Okay. So uh, as in the earlier case, how we define the likelihood function, which is log likelihood function, which is logarithm of the joint density of the data given the model. So that is log of p of x given theta. And I have told you about the golden rule. See, even if you have some whatever the complicated models you have and whatever the variables which are there in the process, if you have the joint density of all the random variables in your experiment, okay, whatever the random factors which influence the experiment, then we can characterize the entire phenomena properly. Okay, so that's why it's good to have this joint density function, which is p of x and z given the parameter theta. Okay, so and we have the likelihood function, we have the joint density. So how do we relate these two? So using Bayes' rule. P of x and z is equal to p of z given x into p of x. Okay, so we take logarithm of that. Okay, so this is nothing but the right hand side, the last term is nothing but your likelihood function, and this is by rearranging the terms, we get something like this. Okay, so the likelihood function is nothing but a combination of the joint density of the random variable and the data, the hidden variable and the data, and the other term is the hidden variable given the data. Okay, so this p of z given x with respect to theta, this is one of the most important term that you should remember, and whatever we do expectation, what we do on the expectation step is nothing but we take expectation with respect to this density function. Okay, and in normal case, in ML estimation, we don't we just maximize this function, which is the left hand side function. But as we have seen in the GMM problem, this function is a bit more complicated, so we can't directly take derivative of this. So what we do is we do some tweakings in this right hand side and make this function a bit make this function convex, yeah, so that it is differentiable, and then compute the parameters of the model. Okay, so so for that we have to assume some theta initially, that is the parameter initially. So we can have some we have some heuristics about the data which we have. So from that you can somehow roughly assign some value for your initial parameter. Let's assume that initial parameter value as theta k. Okay. No, for example, if it's like a coin toss, you know that okay, the head and tail, okay, the probabilities just can be between 0.5, somewhere around 0.5 you can choose. So something like that. You have some information about the experiment, so you set the parameters based on that heuristics that you have. Okay. Then the next is to estimate the hidden density condition on the data. That is nothing but the p of z given x. Okay, using the assumed parameter. So where this theta is nothing but theta k. Okay, then what we do is we take expectation of the likelihood function with respect to this joint density function. Okay. Now, when we take this expectation, this likelihood function is convex, but when you take this expectation of this likelihood function, it gives you two terms. Okay, let's call it as T1 and T2. So here the one of the term is convex, okay, and the other term captures all the non-convex information. Okay, so we'll show that it's okay to maximize only this function and then calculate the parameter, which indirectly maximizes this log likelihood function. Okay, so that is the beauty of EM. That is the underlying principle behind EM. Okay, So why? Because okay, as I told you, why we do all this expectation and then separating out? Because we have something which is we can separately get the convex part, and it is easy to optimize. So that's why we go for this procedure. Now, so first, as I told you, first you have to compute this P of z given x theta k. So how do we calculate this one? See, this can be chosen based on the problem. Okay, the z can be distributed if it's a discrete density function. If it's a continuous, z can be a discrete random variable or a continuous random variable, or it can have many dimensions also. So how do we choose? So it depends upon the problem. Okay, so based on the problem you can choose it to be something. If it's a continuous random variable, there are two cases. I'll tell you one. In factor analysis, normally they assume it to be I'll just focus on the two problems. Okay, in case of GMM, the z is a multinomially distributed function. Okay, let's call it as mn. Okay, with parameters w1, w2, w3, and so on up to wm. Okay, so where all these w's sum to 1. Okay, and in case of factor analysis, this is nothing but a normal distributor with mean x and variance some sigma square, something that they assume. We'll deal about this factor analysis later if time permits, later in the course if time permits. But anyhow, we'll talk about this GMM problem at the end of this class. So that is how we have to choose the form of this P of z given x based on the problem. Okay, so let's assume okay that for that problem which we are going to solve, we have some way to calculate this density function. Now, as I told you, the first step, once you calculate this, you have to take expectation of this likelihood function with respect to this density function, that is E of z given x theta k, okay, of this log P of x. Okay, so now from the earlier rule where we had here log of P of x z minus log of P z given x, so we just substitute that here, and this is just simple rearranging of terms where I just move some of the things here and there. So finally we get something like this. Okay, because expectation is a linear operator, so it spreads within some. Okay, now I've just repeated that, and the left hand side, that is nothing but your log likelihood function. See, that is a term which is which has random variable x, so it doesn't have any z as such. So that's why when you take expectation with respect to some density function, that is P z given x theta, okay, as the term doesn't have z, it just integrates to 1. So you get the same term, that is log of P x. Then the right hand side remains the same. The left hand, okay, the left hand side remains the same. I don't know. Okay, so just assume that. Okay, it gives two terms. Okay, so in that, one of the term is called Q function. So the Q function is nothing but the first term, this one, and the second term is nothing but the cross entropy between two density functions, z given x theta k and z given x theta. Okay, so these are the two terms which which can be obtained from the log likelihood function. Okay, now as I told you, this EM procedure, when we take expectation with respect to this z given x theta k, it gives one convex term and one non-convex term. This is the convex term and this is the non-convex term. Okay, so everything gets split nicely. Okay, so and in the next few slides we'll see that we can maximize only the q function and we don't have to deal anything with the h function. Okay, so we'll see how it can be done. But what is the objective now? The objective now is to find find a value for the parameter theta such that we have to maximize the likelihood of the function of the data for that particular parameter theta. Okay, so which means you should satisfy this condition. So whatever the parameter, the current value of the parameter that you have, that is theta k, and whatever you wanted to estimate, okay, that is theta star, that is the optimal estimator. So the likelihood of the data for the old parameter, for the new parameter should be greater than or equal to whatever the likelihood of the data for the old parameter. So in other words, you just substitute that function. The same equation I have just written it in with respect to the right hand sides. So you should have this q of theta star comma theta k minus h of theta star comma theta k. This should be greater than or equal to whatever the q minus h function for theta k. Okay. Now I just rearrange the terms where I get the q term separately and h term separately, and I have to ensure that the sum should be, the sum of these q terms and the h terms should be greater than or equal to 0. But it's a bit difficult to deal with both the things in a joint way. So what we do is, okay, so if we can ensure that the first term is greater than or equal to 0 and the second term is greater than or equal to 0, then the entire expression will be greater than or equal to 0. Okay. So we'll deal with the second term. Okay, we'll show that. So we have to find a theta star such that we have assumed some theta k. Now we have to find some theta star such that the likelihood is maximum, which means, okay, both the terms should be greater than or equal to, the sum of both the terms should be greater than or equal to 0. So we have to first let's look at both the terms separately and ensure that each of the term is greater than or equal to 0, and then we'll see whether we can estimate this thing properly or not. Okay. So surprisingly, what happens is the second term will always be greater than or equal to 0, regardless of what theta star you choose. Okay, so the second term actually means the divergence between two density functions. Okay, so you can the cross entropy between two density function. So you can check this z given x theta, expectation of log of p of z given x theta k minus expectation of log of p of z given x theta star. Now we take so this term comes here, the log term, and as we are taking expectation with respect to z given x theta k, we have this p probability, and it has a variable z, so we have dz. Okay, so and similarly for the second term. Now what we do is we just see integration is a linear operator, so we have this function and this whatever the density function over which we are integrating are the same, so we can combine both these terms, and there is a negative sign, so this term will come in the denominator of the log, and this will be in the numerator of the log, and this p of z given x theta k will come here. Okay, now we have got this. Now what can you tell about this function? This is nothing but Kullback-Leibler divergence. Okay, so see, normally when you have two data points you compute the Euclidean distance or L1 norm, L infinity norm, L0 norm, whatever the norms you have. But if you have two density functions, two probability density functions, then we have something called as Kullback-Leibler divergence, scale divergence between two distributions. So, and we know that, see, if it's a distance measure, then by principle it should always be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so that is a property of norm. But actually, why I had have stricken this similar is, see, when you have 2 points, okay, for example 1 and 2, what is the distance between 1 and 2? You will tell 1. Okay, what is the distance between 2 and 1? You will tell 1. But in KL divergence case, it's not the same. It's not symmetric. Okay, for example, KL divergence between P and Q is not equal to KL divergence between Q and P. So there is a difference. Okay, but there are some variations where symmetric KL divergence, where both the terms are added and just in order to make it as a symmetric divergence, they have some technique. Okay, but anyway, that is not useful to us. But that's why I have stricken the words similar. But in principle, okay, if the two distributions are not the same, then it should have some distance. Okay, so that distance should always be greater than or equal to 0. If both are same, then it will be equal to 0. Okay, so but anyhow, don't take my word for granted that distance is always greater than or equal to 0. But we can prove this using Jensen's inequality. So remember that we are computing the distance, the KL divergence between these two distributions. That is P of z given x theta star and P of z given x theta k. Okay. So let's see. Okay, so this proof requires this Jensen's inequality, where we have some convex function phi and we have some PDF P of x. Now, what Jensen's inequality tells is phi of integral over f of x and P of x d of x is always less than or equal to integral over x phi of f of x P of x dx. Okay, so by that I'll tell you a simple procedure where phi of x is some quadratic function, which is some x square or something, and f of x is some x itself. Okay, and P of x is a random variable which is some Bernoulli random variable which has some 2, at 2 it is 1, at 3 it is sorry, at 2 it is 0.5, at 3 it is 0.5, something. Okay, this is the density function, sorry, the mass function of this random variable. Okay, so let's draw this curve phi of x, something. Okay, and we have 2 here and we have 3 here. Okay, f of x, okay, something like f of minus 5, minus 2.5 square or something, whatever. Okay, so we have something here. And we have 3 here. Okay, so what it does is you weigh the points x and take the average. Weighing means averaging. Okay, with respect to the density function, and whatever the function value which you get at that weighed point, and whatever the function, okay, for example 2 and 3, okay, which is at 2.5. Okay, so what is the function value at this point? It is actually 0 or something. Okay, so that is the function value after averaging. Now you take the function values at each of the x's and then average those function values. Okay, so that is averaging of those function values is nothing but the right hand side, and averaging before taking, I mean, you average the samples and then take the function value at that particular point, then that is the left hand side. So the left hand side will always be less than or equal to. So that is the property of this convex function. Okay. So the function value after averaging will be somewhat more. Okay. So which means this is the function value at this point, and this is the function value at this point. Let's assume this value to be 1. Let's assume this value to be 1.5 or something, whatever. So if you average this two, you will get 1.25 or something. So that is always greater than your 0. This is the value 0. Okay. So that is what this. So this is a simple example, but you can compute. Why I told sample averages? Okay, that is nothing but your x. Okay, so here x becomes phi of integral f of x, p of x dx. So if you substitute x, then which means it's a sample average of sorry, it's expectation of x just directly. So that's why I have just chosen. But this applies for any function of this. That is Jensen's inequality. So now let's apply this Jensen's inequality for this problem for the second term in that likelihood function. Okay, that is this h term. So h term looks like this. Okay, so and we know that negative log is a convex function. So this can be so now using this inequality we can take this logarithm out. And we have this inequality here. Okay, and as I have given the arrows, okay, the right hand side actually points to this one, and the left hand side points to the inequality. Okay, so now we see that okay, these two terms are the same, so it just cancels out, and we have p of z given x theta star dz. So and you can see that this is a simple density function. It doesn't have any other terms multiplied with it. Okay, so if we integrate this with respect to that variable itself, then as it's a density, it should integrate to 1. Okay, so that's why we have negative log 1, which is equal to 0. So this entire thing will be greater than or equal to 0. You know about this inequality, right? People often tend to use equal, but actually it means once this term is greater than or equal to 0, which means this is greater than or equal to 0, and we should not write here greater than or equal to 0, because what you are talking in this term refers to this term, refers to your previous term. So this actually equals to this negative log pz given that term. Okay. So anyhow, so now using Jensen's inequality, we have shown that h theta k minus h theta star theta k is greater than or equal to 0. Okay. So for any value of theta star, it applies. Okay. So we don't have to worry about the second term. Now let's see about the first term. Now the only job left is to choose some proper theta star. The second term tells that okay, we can choose any theta star to satisfy that condition. But in the first term, okay, we have to have some way. Okay, so we'll see what is that way. Okay, such that we have to choose some proper theta star such that this first term should be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so just rearranging the terms, okay, we get this equation q theta star theta k should be greater than or equal to q theta k. So now we have to ensure this. Okay, your whatever the theta star which you choose or which you calculate should satisfy this condition. But how do we ensure that? This can be ensured if this theta star follows this condition. Okay, which is by maximizing this q function q of theta k. But why is it this has to be done? Okay, I'll tell this graphically. Okay, because see this is nothing but q is a function. Okay, function with respect to theta, and that q function is actually calculated based on some assumed parameter theta k. Okay, Now this q theta star theta k is nothing but the function, the q function's value at theta star, and this is the q function's value at theta k. Okay, so we need to assume some theta star such that, okay, we need to calculate the theta star such that it satisfies this inequality condition. Okay. Now let's view this. I hope you can see this graph. Okay, so let's see this procedure, how it is done graphically. So we have some, we had some likelihood function, log likelihood function, which is non-convex, and it's a bit difficult to take derivative of that function. Okay, so let's assume this ugly function is that log likelihood function. Okay, now we had chosen some parameter theta k, some value for the parameter theta, that is some theta k, that is somewhere here. Okay, theta k, the green one. Now we approximate this log likelihood function by taking expectation of this log likelihood function with respect to p of z given x theta k. Okay, which means and we have got some two terms q and h. We are forgetting about h because that condition is always satisfied. So we take only the q function. So the q function actually looks like this. So that is, we have a convex approximation of the likelihood function at the parameter theta k. So that is this one, q of theta theta k. So this is a function, this yellow color function is a function with respect to the parameter theta. Okay, approximated at theta k. Okay, so that is why we have these two parameters. So you should not get confused with theta k, theta star, and simple theta. Okay, now since this function is convex, we can easily take derivative of this one. So simple derivative, just dou q by dou theta, equate that term to 0 and get the value of theta star. So just by looking at it graphically, we know that this point is a maxima of that function. So we had computed this theta k. Okay, theta star. Okay, that is optimal likelihood. Now what we do, we move to a better solution. Okay, and I told you that this is an iterative procedure. So then what we do is, at this theta star, we have to assume this as a present iteration, that is theta k, that is the theta. Okay, earlier this was theta star, now it is theta k. Now there you approximate the function again. Okay, by taking expectation of this likelihood function with respect to the density p of z given x theta k, and you get something like this. Okay, then you maximize this function. So this function's maxima is somewhere here. Okay, then you repeat this procedure again and again. Okay, from that new theta star, assume that as theta k now, then approximate the function. You have something like this. Okay, and get the optimal function value theta star, and you do this procedure for some 30-40 iterations or something, and finally at the end you will reach some local optima. So it can't see, even though you can see that there are two peaks, okay, one here and one here, it can't cross. Okay, it will just stay within the minima only. Okay. So that's why it doesn't go to a global optima. So it will get stuck in some local optima if it's good. Sorry? It will get stuck here. But if your theta is initialized somewhere in this range, then here it gets approximated like this way. So your gradient search will go towards right, and it will go to the global optima. So based on the initialization, it goes to whatever the optima it finds in its vicinity. Okay. So now this is the entire procedure, whatever the things which we have explained, okay, in a graphical view. And this q function, sometimes people call it as q function, or it's elbow function, that is lower bound function. You can see that all this, the yellow curves are lying below this likelihood function. The only point at which this q function touches this likelihood function is at theta k, because we are approximating this function L with for that particular assumed parameter theta k. So that's why it is equal at that point, and everywhere else it is below. So that's why it is a lower bounded approximation of this L function. Sorry, Q function is a lower bounded approximation of L at theta k. Okay. So this is the entire EM procedure. So what we have seen is a general formulation. Up to now, whatever we have seen is a general problem. Okay. Now we'll focus on GMM problem in the next slide. Okay. So as I told you earlier, we should. It is important to initialize the parameters properly. Okay, and it can find only a local minima, local maxima, and because it is a simple gradient descent procedure, so that's why it is prone to get stuck at local maximum. It can't reach. But as I told you, if you wanted a better maxima, there are some annealing techniques and averaging, model averaging techniques and so on. You can apply that to the CM procedure and get a good optima. No, sorry, get a good parameter estimate. Okay. Now this EM procedure is guaranteed to converge because at every step what we are doing is to maximize the likelihood. See, you have taken some parameter theta k. Okay. The next step you have to obtain some theta star such that the new functions at the new parameters at the new parameter, the objective function's value should always be greater than or equal to. So in that case, the likelihood always increases. So that is why we have we can guarantee convergence, but we can't tell anything about the rate of convergence. It will reach, okay, but it may reach at infinite iterations also. So but the stopping criteria is, as I told you, okay, you choose some fixed number of steps, 30 steps or 40 steps, or if I am not if between two iterations, if my objective function's value is not increasing much, let's say it's increasing by a factor of 10 power minus 20 only, then okay, that is the threshold. Okay, if it's not increasing beyond 10 power minus 20, then you stop. Okay, then so as I told you, the first thing is to get this function, density function p of z given x theta k, but that actually depends upon the problem. So in this GMM problem, we'll see how it is calculated. Okay, so and how do we apply this EM for this GMM problem? Okay, so in the last class we have seen this one. This is the functional form, the density functions form for GMM, where the second it is a sum of m mixtures, where Wm is the weight of the mth mixture, and whatever the term 1 by 2 power t in the exponential whatever we have, that is a simple density function with mu m as its mean and sigma m as its covariance matrix. Okay. Now here in GMM, the data samples are assumed to be IID, that is independent and identically distributed. In later, for the next problem, which is HMM, that will be dealing after 2 or 3 classes, there it need not be IID. So that's why I told you at the beginning of the explanation of this EM procedure that the data may be IID or may not be. So in this case it is IID, in the next case it will not be IID. Okay. So anyhow, now this data is generated by this density, which is f of x given theta. Now the task is to find the parameters Wm, mu m and sigma m. Okay. So the parameter set is called theta in this. Okay. So the first step is to characterize hidden random variables z. Okay. So as I told you earlier, z is a multinomial random variable for this GMM case. Okay. So, and each data point x, so we are given some n data points x1 to xn, and each data point has an associated random variable. Okay. So, x1 has z1, x2 has z2, xn has zn, and each of this is a multinomial random variable. Okay. And where it has some capital M entries, and each entry can take either a value 0 or 1. Okay. And if it is 1 here, it will not be 1 anywhere, everything else will be 0, because it should satisfy this constraint. Okay. So, the sum of all the entries should be 1. So, why is this modeling, why is this kind of assumption important? Because we expect, or we explicitly ask the model to for this Z to capture the identity of the mixture from where it came from. For example, if Z1 is 0 1 0 0, then and if the model is trained properly and so on, we expect that this x1 should have come from the second mixture, and if it is 1 here, then we expect it to have come from the third mixture and so on. So, that is why we have this kind of model. Okay. So, from this assumption we can write that write the joint density of this ZA. Sorry, this is not joint, P of simple for one of the Z, okay, ZA, for this, okay, or this, okay, just for a single random variable, it is nothing but product of whatever them. Why this product? Okay, because as this vector is nothing but the entries of this vectors are either 0 or 1. You have, for example, what is the probability that this P of ZI means, what is the probability that it is first mixture or second mixture or third mixture, which means if it's first mixture, then 1 0 0 0 and so on. Okay. So, you will have W1 power 1, W2 power 0, W3 power 0 and so on, Wm power 0. Okay. So, every term here is 1. Okay. So, we have W1. So, this is the probability that this P of Zi comes from the first mixture. If it is second mixture, then this term will be W2, all the rest of the terms will be 1. So, the product of all these things will give you W2 and so on. So, that is so this is how we write this density function. We have seen this in the last class. If you remember the multinomial density function for map estimation, you can go through that. So, then we have written the density function for the hidden random variable. Now, we'll see how, because as I told you, the main function, which is the P of x given Z, sorry, it should be, okay, we'll see, okay, about that function. But first, we'll see what is the probability of x given Z theta. Okay. Now, here almost, see, you don't even have to write theta, because everything is characterized based on theta. Even if I forget it somewhere, okay, then just assume that it is already there. Okay. So, this is nothing but P of x given Z is nothing but product of all the normal density functions of all the mixtures with the power whatever the hidden random variable that it takes. Okay. So, which means when I have this ZA which is given, okay, so which means you have a data sample xi and you are given a given what hidden variable that it has. For example, the ZA equal to 0 1 0 0 0 something, which means it is the first, it is a second mixture. So what is the probability of that data coming from the second mixture, which means it should be normally distributed with respect to mu2 and sigma 2, right? And if it is the third mixture, then it should be mu3 and sigma 3 and so on. So it all depends upon each of the entries of ZI, okay. So that is why we have N1 par Z I1, N2 par Z I2, so on up to N3 par Z, ZIM, okay. So this N1, N2 are nothing but shorthand notations of normal distributed with mean mu, if it's 1, 1 and sigma 1. So that means N1 and so on, okay. So we have, so this expression is nothing but whatever the product over M, all the normal distributed with raised to the power raised to this Z individual entries of the vector Zi, okay. Now just this is how we model, okay. Now just to verify whether whatever we have assumed, okay, so we have first we have assumed some P of Z. Now we have assumed some P of X given Z, okay. And just to assume that, okay, this is a multinomial density function raised to the whatever the entries of each of the thing, and this is a normal distributed function raised to whatever the values of Z which we have, okay. Now just to check whether these two things what we have chosen is proper or not, we calculate the density function, the simple density function of this Xi. So which is nothing but you take P of X and Z, okay, this is a joint, okay. So if you have to take Xi, you just marginalize this. So in case of discrete, okay, we take summation if it's because Z is a discrete random variable, so you take sum, okay. So what is it? What does this sum over all ZI's mean? See, ZI can be 1 0 0 something or 0 1 0 or 0 1 0 0 1 0 0 and so on up to. So for all these possible ZI combinations you have to sum, okay. So it is not a simple because somewhere when we go along we change the index. I just have to warn you that, okay, just follow carefully with respect to the index, okay, because most of the time we tend to miss the index. So this is what this sum we have to sum over all these possible combinations of Zi, okay. So now using Bayes rule we can split this one with P of the joint into its conditional and its and the marginal thing, okay. Now we know what is P of Z from the previous slide, okay, which is this one, okay. So we just substitute here, and we know what is this from this expression, just substitute here. So we have we now have two terms. You can combine both the terms, and just when you take, so after combination what will happen is, you sum over zi, all combination of zi, and you have a product over m, wm, normal distributed over whatever the xi, and this entire zim. Okay, just take both the products into a single product. Okay, now when you sum over whatever the product for a single, so you have to sum over each of these possible zi's. Now for a single point, okay, out of all the products, okay, so m varies from 1 to m. So there are m items which are multiplied. Okay, out of that, every item will be equal to 1. Only one of the item will have something. Okay, if you take this combination, then you will this product will be equal to w1 n1, and if you take this combination, it will be equal to w2 n2, and if you take this combination, w3 n3, and if you take the last one, wm nm. Okay, so what you will finally get is w1 n1 x theta plus w2 n2 x theta xi, and so on up to wm. Okay, so which is nothing but you have m such terms. Okay, so this is what you get finally, and this is what your assumed model is. Okay, so whatever we have done now, whatever the p of z and the p of xi given z, they are proper. We have properly assumed it. Okay, so that's why we are getting something like this. Okay, so now coming back to the EM formulation for this problem, what I told you is first we should have a joint density function over the over whatever the random variables, because you know the golden rule, right? If you have the joint density function of all the random variables in your experiment, then you can do whatever you want with it. So even in the EM case, I have told that maximizing the likelihood function is indirectly same as maximizing the expectation of this joint density function. So we have to find the joint density function. So which is nothing but from the previous expression. Okay, this is product of whatever the w's and whatever the n's that we have. And as we have, this is for a single example xi. Okay, for a single example xi coming from the model. We have n such IID samples, and so the joint density function of all the data points and all the hidden variables associated with each of the data points is nothing but product of I equal to 1 to m. So you take product of all the p of x i's, I comma zi's. Okay, so that's how you get this term, and combining both these products, you get a single product where you have the form wm power zim, here nm power zim. So you combine all these things together, so you get a single product. Now this is what your joint density function, joint density of all the hidden variables and the data points that you have. Even data is a random variable here, so data and its hidden random variable. So this is the joint density of that. Now we have got this joint density. Now what I told you, so we have to take expectation of this function with respect to the density z given x theta k. That's how you construct the Q function. Okay, so we do that. Okay, so this is nothing but I just whatever I have shown in the last slide, I just substituted it here. Now log of product we have, so it just turns into summation, sum over I, sum over m, and log of the whatever the term here, and the z comes before the log, and we just split both these terms separately. Okay, so one is log of Wm and one is log of whatever nms. Remember that nm is a shorthand notation for the normal density functions, that 1 by root 2 pi and so on. Okay. So and this is the final function we get. This is the q function. Okay. So this function, as I told you, we have to assume some parameter theta equal to theta k. So we just assume some theta k, and based on this value theta k, you calculate the density p of z given x theta k. Okay. Then with this density you take expectation, with respect to this density you take expectation of this function, and then you take derivative and maximize it. Okay. So this is actually easy to maximize, because in the last class we had taken simply, I mean you had the actual density function, and when you take derivative of that one, no, we didn't even try to take derivative. We just had the function where we had some log of some, then we found that okay, nothing, we can't proceed anywhere from that function. But here it is not like that. Every log comes inside the summation. So and there is no summation inside the log. So this is easy to differentiate. So we'll see how we differentiate, and there are even though this looks like a complicated one, expectation over sum over two summations are there then inside that log term, but if you see the z is a multinomial random variable, that is, it can take either 1 or 0. So when you take expectation, so for example, so expectation of z given x theta k is nothing but expectation of something. Okay, we have, okay, with respect to this density, which means z can take 1. What is the probability that z can take 1 into whatever the function we have? Sorry, 0 into probability of z into 0 given x theta k of whatever the function we have. So most of the things will become 0. So we'll have only certain terms, and you will have in fact only one term, because it's a binary random variable, either 0 or 1. All the 0 terms go away, and only the terms which have 1, they remain. Okay, and this term actually becomes a bit more simpler. We'll see how it becomes and how we differentiate after that in the next class. Okay. So thank you. Any questions? Is it clear, the EM? Because this is the basis for the next 6 or 7 classes. Then we'll deal with after this GMM, we'll deal with HMM, where you have dependence assumption, that is Markovian case. You will not have IID samples in that case. There the even there, okay, you will have the z to be multinomially distributed, and in hidden Markov and GMM case, both hidden Markov model and GMM combined case, you will have two kinds of hidden variables. Okay, one of the variable is z, and the other is some delta. Both are multinomially distributed, but this will have some parameter something, okay, w's, and this will have some parameter some alphas or something. and there are multiple levels of hiddenness in that case. Okay. For example, I'll tell you base in a very simple term. You have a data, okay, and you have multiple states, okay, and within each state you have multiple mixtures, okay. So this is S1, S2, S3, okay. So let me denote it by, okay. So this is how the model is. Now you have a simple example which is a single vector x1. So x1 can be generated by this or this or this, maybe x10 I will take, okay. X1 will always be generated by this S1, but x10 can be generated by this or this or this. So that is something hidden, okay, we don't know. So that is why we have to have a random variable z which denotes where which state does x come from, and even within that state there are multiple Gaussians here. So it is a GMM. So it can be generated by either this density or this mixture or this mixture or this mixture. So this delta will tell you which mixture it is, okay, within that for that density. So there are 3 mixtures here, 4 mixtures here, and so on, okay. So there are 2 levels of hiddenness in that. So we model both these things in a multinomial way, and how it is, how do we derive the parameters of these models. We'll see that at the end of this maximum likelihood, this EM thing. Then I think I'll also touch upon simple maximum posteriori based estimation for GMM procedure, for the GMM problem only. I'll not deal with map for HMM, but at least map for GMM I'll teach. Then I'll stop with this estimation theory, and we'll go on with actual ASR stuff, okay. So that's it. So any questions in this class? Q and H. There is no use of H at all. Because this is the likelihood function, this entire thing, log likelihood function, and log likelihood function depends upon this log likelihood function is a function with respect to theta, okay, and no, it's only with respect to theta, okay. Now as it is a bit difficult to differentiate, what we do is we take expectation, okay, expectation by assuming some parameter, value for the parameter, that value is nothing, theta k. So z given x theta k, okay. This z is a hidden variable that you know, and you take this one, okay. Now here what you do, this gives you something, okay, and that something is nothing but q plus h, okay. This gives you something. Now what we do, we have to maximize this function with respect to, this is a function of theta, okay, but parameterized at some theta k, approximated at some theta k, not parameterized, approximated at some theta k. We got something and we have to maximize that, okay. So whatever the value we have to choose for theta, that is theta star, the likelihood of that function, likelihood function at that point should always be greater than or equal to the likelihood function at whatever the point that you have, which is theta k, at present where you are, that is this L of theta k. Now we have to ensure that this function is greater than or equal to 0. You move this term here. Okay, this function should be greater than or equal to 0, and that is why all these things come into picture. This should be greater than or equal to 0, and this should be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, individual term should be greater than or equal to 0. We have seen that the second term by default we have to choose. See, our aim is to choose some theta star. We have to find some theta star. Okay, this is a function of theta, but you have to find some theta star among that whatever the space parameter space you have. You pick one theta such that the function value at that the objective function value at that new theta star should be greater than or equal to the old objective function's value. So, but the second term you choose whatever the theta star, it will be greater than or equal to 0. So, there is no use in that one, right, because of Jensen's inequality. Only if you stay there it will be 0, but if you go somewhere else, go anywhere, okay, that this will be greater than or equal to 0. So, there is no use in that. So, that's because it should the theta star which you obtain, that theta star should follow both the conditions. The condition based on the second term is it can be anything, which means it is no condition at all, right. So, the first so this likelihood, see, that's what from here, see, this log p is nothing but your log likelihood function, and you take expectation over that log likelihood function, and as we have, see, this log p of x is nothing but your likelihood function, log likelihood function. You take expectation with respect to whatever I have told here, e of z given x theta k. Okay, as this left hand side doesn't depend upon the z, the same term is following, but here on the right hand side it is a function of z. So, and that is what we get as q and h. Okay, then we'll stop the session.